All right, so welcome to Pro Wrestling with Juice. Today, I wanted to talk about a couple things. The first thing I wanted to talk about was the Jon Moxley, Chris Jericho interview, and on the Talk is Jericho podcast, which, if you haven't caught that, you will want to go check that out. That was probably the most interesting Talk is Jericho. Heck, it's probably one of the more interesting wrestling podcast episodes I've ever listened to. I've listened to, the Colt Cabana ones. I've listened to Stone Cold Steve Austin, Edge and Christian, like all sorts of podcasts. The CM Punk one where he was talking about his treatment in WWE and stuff. And I feel like this one, the Jon Moxley one, was the best one to date. So the thing that stood out to me is Jon Moxley, formerly known as Dean Ambrose. Up front, I don't think he has any animosity towards WWE. It seemed like he was very appreciative of all the money he's made there, meeting Renee Young there, all the experiences with the Shield and things like that. It sounds like, his only issues, it sounds like, with WWE were that he didn't have any real control over his character. He was forced to say ridiculous things in promos. He was forced to be this cartoon character of this image that Vince McMahon had, and he didn't like that. He wanted something more serious. Ultimately, it sounds like Jon Moxley just does not appreciate the WWE product today. He mentioned multiple times that he would be in multiple segments on a show, and it was not leading up to anything. It was pointless. It was a waste of time. And that is, frankly, and this is just my opinion, that is my big gripe about the WWE. They have tons of segments, tons of time invested into nonsense. None of it leads to a storyline. None of it leads to a feud or a rivalry or a title match. You just have a bunch of guys doing stuff randomly on a show half the time. So that's my big gripe about WWE. But anyway, so he had, talked about how they wanted him to do some things that he just felt were uncalled for. Like there was a spot with Roman Reigns. They wanted him to, and Roman Reigns was out with leukemia. They wanted him to say something that he thought would have lost them a lot of money, lost their sponsorships. And he just flat out said he wasn't going to do it. And props to him for standing up for what he believed in. Clearly, that is not a problem for him. He has never, according to his side of it, he has never had a problem standing up to Vince McMahon and WWE and voicing his opinion. But he is a true professional, and so he knows who writes his checks. And ultimately, if they want him to go out and, be a fool, he'll do it. And he said he tried to do his absolute best, no matter how terrible he thought it was. Like the spot where the doctor was giving him rabies shots and stuff, and he thought that was stupid and almost walked out right then and there. So again, that was, I thought, pretty interesting that hearing all this. And there was a part where he said that Attitude Era guys calling him out for being too scripted in his promos and stuff, and he needs to stand up. I felt like that was a dig at Stone Cold for the Stone Cold podcast, because Stone Cold, at that time, I feel like Ambrose was on fire. I think he was either just switched back to Raw or something like that from SmackDown. I don't remember exactly, but I felt like Ambrose was like on the verge of breaking out and being a huge star at that time. And I remember the Stone Cold podcast, Stone Cold did not do Ambrose any favors or Moxley any favors. Telling him that he needs to stand up and get more of an edge and get nastier. And I felt like in that podcast, you could tell then, and Moxley didn't say anything about this, but I feel like at that time, you could tell he was defeated. Like, he had already done that stuff and tried to stand up and felt like he couldn't do anything. You already could tell it then. And so I felt like that podcast, it just didn't do him any favors. But hearing it with Talk is Jericho, where he's uncensored, able to just say what he wants and feels, was really good. And, you know, he said some stuff I'm sure that, you know, if Vince McMahon listens to it or whatever, he's going to be pissed. You know, he's going to be like, well, I didn't realize it was like this. You know, I'm sure he'll say that. And even Moxley says that. And I see a bunch of people saying, oh, he went too far. He'll never be allowed back in the WWE. And when AEW fails, he'll be back and trying to beg Vince for his job back. First of all, AEW is not going to fail. And if it does, it's going to be 10 years at least down the road. AEW is going nowhere. Sorry, WWE slappies. It's just not. On top of that, WWE is, you don't have to go to WWE to make money anymore. It's been proven for the last 5 years you don't have to go to the WWE for money. Hell, AJ Styles for a long time was turning down the WWE because he was making more on the independents. You know, and I loved that he went to New Japan and did his own thing and became even more of a star. That's what's up. That's what you got to do. You know, and so I think Moxley will do something like that now. He'll go and he'll do, you know, AEW. He's going to definitely do New Japan. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see him in CZW again. I would love to see him in Ring of Honor. I would love to see him do a bunch of shows. Now, I know, you know, ROH, you know, would love to have Moxley, but at the same time, with their strain on things with AEW, I don't know if ROH will be able to use Moxley. I don't know how that works. I don't have any idea. But I think he's going to have plenty of fun. It sounds like he's got some film projects. He's been working with Signic Mondo out in California. The promo that everybody, including myself, thought that AEW paid for. Maybe, clearly they did not. That was his own pocket. He said it on the podcast. And he said that he reached out to his old buddy from CZW, Signic Mondo, who I believe was the first person to go off of that building into the back of the truck by John Zandig. But I could be wrong on that. But yeah, so anyways, the Moxley interview is great. I have a whole new appreciation for him. I always felt like he was the Shield member I would have loved the most. And I got excited when they split up because I thought he was going to really do some stuff. And at times he did. But, you know, Vince McMahon, it sounds like, squandered it. So my big takeaways from this are that it's all Vince. Once Vince quits running WWE, that's it. Once Triple H takes over and can let the Road Dogg, you know, help him out and some of the other guys that he's worked with. I mean, just look at NXT. When he took over NXT without Vince's help, it's done really well. He put guys in charge who knew what they were doing, and they have a really good product down there, a product I enjoy. Just look at what he's done with 205 Live. People actually are interested in 205 Live now, you know? So, again, Triple H knows what he's doing. He knows how to tell a story. He knows what the fans want. And unfortunately, Vince is still calling the shots. I see people saying, oh, Vince needs to just go and worry about the XFL. He's not. Vince, until he dies, is going to have his finger on the product. He's not going to give it up. He's too adamant about it. I think the reputation of calling him a genius has gone to his head. You know, and at one point, I think he was. He was a very smart, innovative wrestling promoter, business owner. You know, but nowadays he's out of touch. He has no idea what fans want today. And I mean, just look at the product from, you know, over the years. You know, even the Attitude Era, the time when everyone praises the most, you had some real garbage in there. I mean, I know a lot of us lived through it. I lived through it. But if you go back and literally watch every episode in a row, you're going to be like, wow, they did have a lot of crap going on. And, you know, people like Stone Cold and The Rock and Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. Hell, they had some pretty bad stuff with some of them too. But ultimately, it was decent. I mean, but like some of the Undertaker stuff was just stupid. You know? Like, so they just, you know, the Attitude Era just was a little bit poor as well at times. But you had such huge stars. And you had some really memorable moments that weren't garbage that stand out. And as time has passed, you know, everyone's got these rose-colored glasses for it. The thing is, when crap stuff was on back then, you could flip to the other channel. You know, tune in to WCW Nitro. All of a sudden, there's a big NWO angle. Or a nice cruiserweight match with, like, Rey Mysterio, Dean Malenko, Ultimo Dragon, Chris Benoit, you know, Billy Kidman, like a lot of really talented people. Juventud Guerrera, Psychosis, like really talented wrestlers. And so you'd watch that for 15 minutes. And then you switch back to Raw after all the garbage was off and watch something really good because WCW is doing some really crappy, some really fat dude out of a bar, you know, who clearly does not look like he trained for wrestling a day in his life and can't put on a good match. So you switch to Raw. Like, you just go back and forth. So anyways, I'm way off topic, but my point is I do believe what Moxley said. I do think that Vince is the reason the product is stale. I don't think Vince truly takes AEW seriously yet, and I think that's going to bite him in the ass. But that's okay because, you know, I believe in what AEW is saying. They're not trying to compete. They're not trying to go head-to-head or anything like that. They're, like they said, they're trying to put on the best show possible. And I feel like that is something different than what WCW used to try. That is something different than what WWF used to try against WCW. You know, I think by focusing on just their product and telling the best story possible and have the best feuds and the most compelling storylines like that, I think that's the way to go. And I think they'll still do jabs here and there because that's just their, you know, all the guys' sense of humor. That's part of their creative ways of doing things. You know, they've done it on Being the Elite. Now that they've done Double or Nothing, you can see Cody enjoys doing little jabs, you know. The Jericho character, homage to his character over the years. That was great. It had stuff like Lionheart wasn't a WWE thing, but the other two gimmicks were. And I thought that was cool. The throne spot was cool. In the match when Dustin did the Stardust thing to Cody after Cody did it, I believe that was really hilarious. You know, so anyways, I think you can expect some little things here and there. I don't think you're going to get, you know, AEW trying to spoil any WWE things. I don't think it's going to get, you know, real nasty like that. I think it's just going to be little digs here and there and the guys having fun expressing themselves. So if one side does get a little chippy and dirty about it, then maybe you'll see something from the other. But until then, I don't think they're going to get real nasty. And that's okay. I don't want it to. I have officially canceled my WWE Network subscription. And, you know, so I'm not going to be up to date on WWE like I used to. And I don't care. I'm happy. I got a product I love and support in AEW. I love New Japan Pro Wrestling. I like ROH. I may end up picking up their streaming service. So that's where I stand. So anyways, if you listen to the podcast, be sure to post your comments below what you thought of it. And, you know, let's have a discussion. So that's it. If you haven't listened to that podcast, go check it out because it was really good. I'm telling you, it was the most compelling one I've ever heard. And I've listened to quite a few. So it felt authentic. It felt real. I didn't feel like anything was exaggerated. I felt like it was all legit. So yeah. Anyways, that's it. This was Pro Wrestling with Juice. Hit that subscribe button, the like button, and I will see you guys next time. Take it easy.